Hi and welcome to Out the Box Talk, the talk show where we talk to people who are living life out of the box. And I have a very interesting person in the box today. She's somebody who's been an actress and lived in a different part of the globe, and for the last 20 years has been living in Malaysia. She has one of the most viewed TEDx speech, and she's been an amazing speaker, and we'll hear from her more. Hi Mariana, welcome to Out the Box Talk.
Thank you, Harish. It's very nice to see you this afternoon.
Pleasure. So Mariana, I've known you for quite some time, and I know you're an amazing individual doing a multitude of things. I would like to know a little more about how it started for you, right from your early childhood to getting into your career and then to where you are today.
Thank you. Well, I think my out of the box life started when I was 16 or 17 years old, because it was at that time that I made the decision that I was going to become an actor. And instead of going to university, I started studying theater in private workshops with these very well-known theater teachers that would come up from New York City. So I knew then I wasn't going to have a degree. I was going to be going a different route, but I just followed my heart. I moved when I was very young, about 17 years old after high school. I moved to Toronto from Montreal, and I began my career as a theater actor, and I did that for 15 years. And, you probably think you probably had a lot of guests talking about choosing a life outside of the box and how wonderful it is, and how amazing it is when you finally have the courage to step out of the box and do things differently. But I'm going to share that for me, it's always come with a big price. If I look back and I say, do I regret a life of choices outside the box? It's very hard to say, because on one hand, everything that I am today, all the amazing experiences I've had are because of that. But there's always been a huge price and a lot of struggle. And the first one was when I finished my acting career. When I got to my early to mid 30s, I kind of felt, okay, the theater is really more a younger woman's game, and the parts get skimpier and skimpier as you get older. And while men's parts, they increase in number. And I thought, well, do I want to be, struggling, trying to get work as an actor? Do I want to be a starving actor? I've had a good run of it. I've had a great career. Maybe it's time to walk away from it. But because I didn't have a university degree, because I hadn't armed myself with the stuff that people in the box do, get the degree, do everything in the right order, I was really stuck. Even though I'd had this really wonderful career as an actor, I traveled all over the country. I'd been in probably 100 different theater productions, and I can't deny it's a really, really exciting course of life. Every production is brand new, and you're in a new city with a new group of people, and you're exploring a different character in a different world, in a different time setting. And I wrote a feature film, and that got optioned by Castle Rock in Hollywood. It was really glamorous at times and also difficult at times. But when I decided to leave, I'm like, oh my God, okay, well, I have no degree. I probably couldn't even get a receptionist job. And I don't know where to go. Like, I don't know where to go from here. So I remember watching this documentary about this man who was fighting in the Vietnam War in America, and he didn't want to go home again. So he just decided to book a flight to Australia. And he didn't tell his wife or his kids. They all ended up thinking this poor guy had died. But in reality, he reinvented himself in Australia. He took on a new name, a new identity, and he started this brand new life, never sharing about his past. And I just thought, wow, can you just reinvent yourself? I'm going to try it. So I actually did Anthony Robbins. You know Anthony Robbins? I did Anthony Robbins. Do you remember in those days he had cassettes? He had this like 30-day audio cassette program, and I did it religiously every day. And by the end of it, boom, I decided to sell everything I own. And in 1 month, I took all my belongings, everything. I gave my fiance his ring back. I took all my belongings, I put them out in a garage and sold them in a big garage sale. Every single thing I owned, Harish, the knives, the forks, the spoons, everything, every article of clothing, every piece of furniture, all of my scripts from all of my plays, my whole library, everything. And I bought a ticket to Australia to reinvent myself. And I just decided I was just going to go and see what happens. So I remember 2 very emotional moments in this out of the box experience. You see, it's not easy being out of the box. One was that moment that the garage sale closed and every single thing I owned that I'd accumulated from living alone from the age of 16, everything now, all 17 years of stuff was sold to these greedy little animals that came and took all my stuff and gave me a few dollars. And I sat on the sidewalk and I bawled my eyes out. I cried and cried. But then I remember just a few days later, sitting on that airplane. It was a ticket to Australia. I had a stopover in Malaysia, which I didn't know anything about. My travel agency recommended it. He said, have a little stopover in Malaysia. And I'm sitting on that flight, and all I had, literally all I had, I kid you not, Harish, I had one backpack about the size of, those big backpacks you see backpackers wear? Not that one, not that. I had, the ones you see school kids carry their school books in, like that. No, I kid you not. I literally had like a change of clothes, 2 changes of clothes, and toothbrush, like nothing. And I'm on this airplane and I'm flying over the ocean on my way to Malaysia. I've never been to Asia. I don't know a soul in Asia or Australia for that matter. And all I have is some savings in traveler's checks. And I'm sitting on that flight and suddenly, Harish, I felt fantastic. I just felt like it was like a cleansing, like I had nothing. I was so out of my comfort zone. I didn't know what was going to become of me, but it was all ahead of me. It was an adventure and I owned nothing. I was tied to nothing. It was the most freeing, unbelievable feeling in the world. It wasn't scary at all. And then when I got to Malaysia, very quickly, I felt this is where I belong. I don't know why. I felt this is home. This is where I want to be. And I didn't go on to Australia. I stayed there and I built a life there. And here, 25 years later, Harish, I am a corporate communications trainer who's worked in Singapore for 10 years. I'm, I guess, a best-selling TEDx talk speaker, although not selling because you don't make money. A world champion finalist in public speaking. And I married a Malaysian. I'm not married anymore, but I had a 15-year marriage to a Chinese Malaysian. And I have a beautiful 18-year-old daughter. And how did life turn out this way? So now I'm back to square one, Harish. Like, isn't that, don't you feel the same, Harish? You lived out of the box. You kind of, you do something, it's really scary and exciting and you do it, but it comes with it, along with it comes really big, a price you pay. Because when you come to the end of that thing, you sort of have to start all over again. I don't know, Harish, is it the same for you? I don't feel my life has gone up. I feel it's gone like all this way and all that way and then all this way. And somehow through it all, it's gone up. But every time it's like reinventing, starting again from scratch. Do you share the same experience as me, Harish?
Yes, very, very true. I so relate to this. I'm saying, first of all, like I was like kind of lost for words. Like it was like a fairy tale story for me when I was listening to this. This is like, wow, this like sounds so exciting, and I was kind of picturizing what you were saying. It kind of felt like a movie script actually to me. So I was kind of picturizing, actually, one fine day, this girl thinks, okay, I'm gonna pack my bags and leave. And you typically see these kinds of things happen in movie scripts. And now I'm like, okay, I'm meeting somebody who's actually done this, and it's kind of a real life story. It's so amazing to listen. What I'm finding from this is what I always see as a commonality between a lot of creative individuals is this high risk, high written game. Living out of the box is no doubt a high risk, high written game. The odds are very high, the stakes are very high, and of course, eventually, when you get to what you really want, the rewards are also equally high. And that's what we are kind of pursuing. Sometimes in the journey, I felt like we may not find the real sweet spot of what exactly we set out to find, but the comfort, or probably the greatest thing that comforts us, is like, what? I lived it on my terms. I felt like doing it. I did it. And I always felt probably that's the high that we all love and live for, and that's probably drives us to do all this. Otherwise, we would be doing more sensible, safer stuff. And we said, hey, what? Half the things that we've done doesn't sound sensible, doesn't sound safe, doesn't sound anybody. Like, you look back and say, hey, what was running in my mind at that point of time that I sold off everything that I had and then just packed it up, and I said, okay, let me move. You need that little bit of a little over the edge, where you say, like, I'm going to try and do something different. And that brings me to this very important question, where I always tell people, like, quite often we are all conditioned by two thoughts. One is from childhood we get into this conditioning where you get to be heard that, we are like this, we have to be like everyone. Like, conditioning happens at home, where they say, our family is like this, we live like this, and we do things like this. Or in our society, we only do these kinds of things. Then you go to school, the school says, the rules of the school is this, and you need to follow this pattern. And then it grows further into your work and life, till one point either you start accepting that and you just live your life that way, or you kind of rebel at some point of time, where you say, I was not cut out to do this. And another pattern that I'm seeing in these days is with the youngsters, where I see they are kind of given the super privilege, where they say, you are special, you deserve this, you are entitled for all this. Do you see a big divide, or is it a problem of conditioning, or is this the problem of entitlement, which is kind of creating this problem?
Yeah, I'm thinking about my daughter right now. Yeah, she's definitely smarter than I was at her age, but she's not as much of a risk taker at all. She likes the comforts of home. Yes, she has a great sense of entitlement that we didn't have. I guess also, when we took these risks, it involved physically moving yourself into a new environment where you're exposed to new things, like the acting world was a physical environment, a different environment with different people. And getting on that flight to Malaysia was a different environment. But I guess our kids today, a lot of their lives is online, and it's much harder to escape your comfort zone or the status quo, because, what are you going to do? Block everybody that block? You don't have a different environment. You have one physical environment and all this stuff coming to you from the world. I think in some ways it's much harder to get out of your comfort zone and be really brave. It's a weird thing. Also, I guess people are more scared than we were, aren't they? My daughter's 18 and she's already thinking about security and she's thinking about what business should she go into that's most guaranteed to make her a lot of money, and that, you know, she's going to have a job in 10 years or 15 years. We didn't think like that at all. I don't know about you, but I didn't think like that at all. Mind you, I come from a very selfish culture, right? We were a very individualistic culture. There was no obligation on me to my family or my parents. Like I think in India, you have an obligation to your family, your parents. We didn't. My parents, you know, my mother ran a business till she was like 80, you know, she didn't need me, and she certainly wouldn't have been there for me when I had my daughter. You know, she has her life and I had my life. So we had this sort of sense of, I am one in the world, so I'm going to think as one. And I thought like that till I got married and had a child. Maybe that's a difference. I don't know. What about in India? Do people think, are they starting to, I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing, honestly. I think the fact that, you know, I had to grow up very young. At 16, I was already, you know, I was working at the age of 13 after school. At 16, I moved out of the house just before my 17th birthday, and I was going to this lousy college and working in a cinema. And, you know, we did everything ourselves. We weren't responsible to anybody, but also nobody took care of us. Nobody gave me any money or any help. I never had any guidance. I don't ever remember a role model. I don't remember my parents looking over my report cards. I don't remember them advising me. It was just, we were just on our own. I think that made us brave. I think it's different today, and I don't know that it's a good thing. You know, I'm so envious. One of the reasons I stayed in Montreal, in Malaysia, was because, and I think it's the same in India, because I've been in India a lot, especially the last year. And I'm so envious when people in India said to me, oh, in our family, you know, even if you go to the dentist, you know, someone will go with you. Oh my God, nobody ever, I mean, I've never had anybody to go with me anywhere. I'm so jealous of that. So that's why I have mixed feelings about getting out of the box. I think it's really nice to be in the box. I kind of wish I had a box. I wish I had a box to be in. So what do you say to that, Harish?
Very true, because in India, most of it is kind of still family structure. So it goes by family, it goes by family values, or even if you're kind of being alone with your family, you kind of tend to call your parents, or you tell them what's happening, and they get onto the phone and say, hey, okay, what's happening? You know, how are you feeling? And I think that is probably the difference that we find in India as a country, you know, where no matter how nuclear the families have become, there is still a thread or an umbilical cord connecting back to your parents and stuff. And it kind of stretches all through your life. And that is probably the thread that has made a lot of difference in the country. You know, that's kind of makes India very different and apart from a whole lot of countries across the globe.
So in India, would you say because of that, there are a lot of people who secretly wish they could get out of the box and think that they can't?
Yes, I find it kind of true with India, because like you said, in India, a lot of people would secretly try and do that. You know, sometimes even in large business families, I've had friends, I've known a lot of industrialists, like their second generation, you know, who were like probably my age when they were growing up. They were large families, you know, large industrial families. They were like $1 billion worth of assets and stuff like that. They would get too caught up in the way their family tradition, structure, what business they are in. And they would not really get the freedom to go out and try something more simpler, or try a business which is not falling into their line of businesses. So they would really struggle to do what their parents did, and they would generally get forced into getting to that same business or same work or same culture. So for somebody to do something out of the box is quite a challenge to even step out. Like, if you ask, I look at my background, very simple. Like, I come from a very simple, low middle class family. My dad was like doing public sector work. He was in insurance, and we've kind of grown with like very humble, very simple lives. We've like lived in a small, like typically like a one room kitchen kind of house. We would have leaky roofs and stuff like that. And for us, the general thought would have been like, go out, get a good job, study well, and that's the way you look forward to it. But thankfully, I found a blessing in my parents, I would say, is like, they did not stop me from doing what I wanted to do. They were not aware of what I was doing. They had no clue of whatever I said about media or art. Or they said, hey, you know what? We don't understand any of these things that you're talking. But if that makes you happy, I think, okay, if that makes you happy, go ahead and do it. And I really look and count that as the biggest blessing. I think that made a whole difference for me in terms of parents letting me do. And I think that is very critical for a whole lot of other people, where if the parents are not really understanding, it becomes even more challenging for that individual to really come out, reason out why he wants, because the success and the time that you have to really go out and succeed is too shrunk. Like, you have to be out there and be earning, because if you don't really go out and earn, the family is probably not surviving or you're not surviving. So existential pressure becomes too much that you don't really get that window to go and experiment out something. So, and in spite of the odds, people have done something different and done some remarkable stuff, is what I admire here. Like, it's kind of literally against all odds. So that also puts a little bit of a restrictive environment for a lot of people. Like, they do something out of the box, but kind of being within the box. It's a little box in a box kind of a situation, I would say. And that brings me to another important thought. Like you said, the onus is largely on us, where you need to feel like you're the chosen one. You have to go out and take the risk. And when you're out there, you're feeling extremely vulnerable, because you're kind of putting and opening the doors to your personal life completely to the world. You're kind of getting exposed, you're being tested. And how important do you think is vulnerability area for people to think out of the box?
Well, I think when you make choices that are out of the box, you're kind of forced to be vulnerable, because it's almost like you're rendered naked, in a way. You're suddenly stripped of protection. And you alone are going to pay the price, take the risk, feel the pain, feel the loneliness. When you win, and when you do win from getting out of the box, it's great, because you really, it's just such an amazing feeling of pride and accomplishment. But for me, I can say you don't always have that team to share it with. It's your win. So all of these things, I think they make you vulnerable. And I think you get more vulnerable as you get older, because, I'm sharing honestly. So I'm talking to all those people out there who kind of wish you could live out of the box, but you're not. Maybe you're in a traditional job, and there are things you'd like to do, but you're afraid, and you've got a mortgage to pay and kids to raise, or you just don't feel it like you can upset the apple cart, or you don't have the confidence. Well, I just want to say, it is hard. You're vulnerable, and it's painful, because it does render you a little bit alone in many ways. Even if you have a team and you have good people working for you, in some ways you're alone. You're not cushioned by anything, and that's really scary. There's many, 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 many nights that I wake up in the middle of the night and I wake up scared. And I don't think I've ever said this to anybody, especially like in public, but I wake up scared. I lie there at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm thinking about, what if it fails? Or what am I going to do next? Or, oh my God, this part is over and I have to reinvent. What am I going to do next? How do I start again? How do I get the energy to do it all over again? And, I say, I know the grass is always greener, but I say, if you're in a comfort zone life and you're in the box, enjoy it, enjoy the security and the safety, enjoy knowing you can sleep at night because there's a certain predictability in life, even though we know this year there's not that much, but enjoy it. It's a wonderful thing to feel safe. Yes, it's wonderful to get out of the box and do all these exciting things, but it's not more wonderful than being safe and secure and cushioned in life. It's just a different wonderful. I feel like coming on this show with you, Harisha, I'm supposed to come here and empower everyone to get out of the box, but I want to say, just love where you are. Love where you are.
Wow, I'm kind of liking the interesting perspective that you're bringing in. Somebody who's kind of lived out of the box and kind of done a whole host of things, doing things out of and especially the true sense of kind of exposing your vulnerable side to the world, and then and like rightly you said, earlier when you want to be more tough and you want to show like you want to project the hard exterior, and as you grow and then you say, it's okay to really kind of open up and show the vulnerable side of you. And like to me also the learning experience being like as you grow, then you are comfortable with exploring and kind of showcasing your vulnerable side, and the world tends to accept you better when you're able to show your vulnerable side and say, hey, this is what I am and this is where I'm standing, and this is what I know and this is what I don't know, and you get comfortable with that aspect in life. So that brings me to this very next question. When you kind of open up and kind of project this vulnerable side to the world, that's when you see that people are able to have a more matured, more open, and a more collaborative thought or conversation. How important do you think opening up and showing the vulnerable side is to create a collaborative environment for the individual and in large for the world?
Well, that's a tough question. I guess as we get older, we must become more vulnerable, because vulnerability is honesty. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's just the truth. And I think we do get more fragile as we get older. We're so funny. We grow up with these ideas that, we're going to charge ahead and succeed, and we have big dreams, and it's all forward movement and up, 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 up. But life is really not like that at all. And you don't kind of realize till you get older. I'm going to tell you honestly, I guess you've probably already done the math. I'm 58 years old as of 2 days ago. And you kind of have no choice to be vulnerable and when you talk about collaboration, well, I can only speak for me, but as I get older, and I'm now thinking in COVID, I'm looking at the work that I did pre-COVID, and I'm thinking I need to change, and maybe this is a good time to change everything. I'm even thinking about going back to the West, and that's pretty scary. Can you imagine being sort of single, being alone, and considering packing up everything again? Although this time I wouldn't have a bag this size, I would have a container, but picking up and going and starting again back in the country that I left 25 years ago, that is scary. So how can I not be vulnerable? How can I not be vulnerable? And then you know what? I think vulnerability becomes your gift in some way, because if I can say to you, I'm scared, I'm scared of the future. I'm excited too, but it's an equal measure of terror. I think we all are, but I think if you can say that, you can say it to people, then other people feel more comfortable, like we're not alone really, and I'm not alone when I say it out loud. I know there are other people right now that are watching this saying me too, so right away, without even seeing you, I know I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this. In terms of collaboration, wow, well, when you get older and when you're an out-of-the-box kind of a person, collaboration is very important. It's everything. And, I'm actually thinking right now what I want to do is I'm now exploring the idea of family trees and legacies and people telling their stories, their life stories. This is my new interest, but I've been thinking about family trees, Harish, and I was thinking about you actually, because I was thinking, when we grow up, we have this idea that a family tree starts like this. It starts from the top and it comes down and spreads out. And this person in the Philippines, and these people in Singapore, and these people in Canada, and these people in Malaysia. Your family, your collaboration is your family, and they're not just people you work with. They're people you open your heart to. And I know, Harish, we share things, and I don't have to hide that it's a difficult time right now for me. And there you go. I can say it to you because I know as an out-of-the-box person, you have experienced, maybe are experiencing the same challenges too.
I'm like in a different zone right now in terms of
I'm crying right now. Really, at the end of the day, I mean, what we have is each other. And when you're out of the box and you meet another person who's out of the box, well, you can be out of the box and a bit scared of the future together. And it doesn't mean you're not excited at the same time. It doesn't mean fear is just a total negative. It's just scary and exciting, and it's not comfortable and it's not safe. And it's nice to look at you, Harish, and know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm like, generally what I'm like kind of lost for words, because generally what happens is when we generally talk about out of the box living and life, and we generally end up talking a lot more on ideas. We get excited more on future and all sorts of blah blah things like that. But then what you kind of brought today is like the true side. It isn't all that rosy and glorified as the world picturizes that to be. Though it's nice, we're living that, but then it also comes with a lot of sacrifice and efforts and a lot of things that you kind of take it and churn it. It's also taking the bitter pill along with that sweet candy that you want to have at the end of the day. So it's about how can you balance that out and how you can take it. And see, what I've seen this as a pattern, and generally I also take and talk it out in my keynotes and stuff like that, because since I talk more on creativity and things like that, and I see these factors being very, very important. I've seen some of the biggest CEOs of companies, who are like extremely straitjacketed and a tough cookie, but then after that 10, 15, 20 minutes of that inertia and that shell broken, you suddenly see a complete new avatar of them, and I've seen so many times their executives and other managers say, hey, what did you do? I have never seen this man go this crazy. What exactly? And I say it is the infectious vibe. It's like if you are crazy enough and you're making the other person feel, hey, it's comfortable to be crazy enough, and they come and get into a new zone. And I feel that's where trust starts developing, and once that thing, and I feel trust is so critical for us to not only just get comfortable, but also to do more collaborative work, to do something more creative and to give each other that space to do something? And how much do you really give importance to trust as a factor in anything in life?
Yeah, trust is huge because you have to trust the people that you're working with, that they have the same intentions as you. You have to trust yourself that you can handle it. So I just want to go back for a second, okay, because now you've seen me cry. And I just want to say, like, I think you have to embrace all the feelings. When you talk about vulnerability, you have to embrace and accept that the fear and the insecurity and the lack of safety and the risk, all those things, it becomes part of the life. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. You have to, it's almost like, an athlete in training, when you see these crazy athletes in super training for things, and they suffer a lot of pain, as they're in training. They're exhausted, they're in pain physically, and they're still driven and they carry on. So you don't ever get over that or expect it to go away. You have to say, oh, you know what, fear and all that is a part of my life. And so trust comes in a big way. The trust that it's going to go up and it's going to go down. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. And when it's great, it's going to be great. And when it's bad, it's going to be crap. And when it's great, can I say crap? Okay, I can say crap. When it's great, it's going to be great. When it's crap, it's going to be crap. And you just have to, it's almost like being on a roller coaster where it's going to be a wild ride, and you just have to trust that you can handle all of it. You also have to trust, I think, that when things are amazing and going fantastically, you have to trust that this too shall change. It's not about I don't know, to me, I'm just speaking to me, maybe it's not everybody, but it's not the achievement. It's like you said earlier, it's the decision that I've got to live life on my terms in a way. Like I cannot imagine living life for something that is not my path. Like I've got to be allowed, if I've got an idea that I think is really cool and I really believe in it and I want to explore it, I have to just go there and explore it. I have to. It's like my soul wants to go there and nothing can stop it. So it takes trust that you'll survive it. Trust that it's going to feel really crappy at times and it'll be fine. Trust that it's about the process. I may never reach that goal, but it doesn't matter. It's the life choice of saying, I want to be free to chase, to go after, to explore, to create the things that my brain is visualizing. And that's also trusting that I can reach out to Harish like I did 2 days ago and say, Harish, I'm doing this and I got stuck and you're really good at this. I'm stuck. Please, can you help me? And that people will say, yeah, I'll help you because they understand that feeling. And I'm there for other people too. But, somebody just came to me recently and said, I've got to give this speech and I'm stuck. I don't know how to make it really compelling. I've just got all these ideas. I'm stuck. And I put down everything and dive in there and spent quite a long time with this person to get it right. And yeah, trust is a big part of it. Vulnerability is huge as you get older. Yeah, because you have to just, oh man, getting older is really weird. You look and you say, this isn't what I expected. Things didn't turn out the way I thought they would at all. But you look back on all those things and you think, oh, I can't imagine living my life without those things, because I can't imagine not being the person I am, knowing what I know, or being strong enough to handle what I can handle. But I think we all feel that. You don't have to be living an out of the box life to experience that. Whatever life we're on, whatever path we're on, life is the most amazing journey, and it is whatever we make it.
Wow. Like I'm like when I'm like listening to you, I'm like kind of frozen. I generally kind of talk too much, but then today is like I've been like Okay, I'm like just glued onto what you're saying, because it's so compelling, and it's really touching, and then it's really nice to hear this from you. And this brings me to a very, very important question. It's like, do these factors really contribute towards making an individual a creative individual? And if so, can these factors ensure he is happy? Because I'm out to prove a simple equation: creative people are happy people. How far do you agree or contest, or how far do you think this is achievable?
That is such an interesting question, and I don't know how I'm going to come across saying this. I don't think that creative people are happier. I don't believe that. I think, but I don't think it's that important. I get obsessed with things that I want to try or do or pursue or create. I mean, I just get obsessed with them. I don't know if I'm coming across like a really like dismal person. I certainly don't mean it. I'm just trying to be really honest. No, I mean, some of the happiest people that I know lead very in the box, safe lives, and they're happy for many valid reasons, you know. For me, I find it's a roller coaster, because I get so passionately, it's like wanting something. I feel like I want something and I'm struggling to make it so, and it's always a struggle. You know, and then it flows, and then it's amazing, and then it's crappy again, and I want something different, or it's finished, you know. If the glory is over, that thing is done. You know, like maybe I'm preparing a talk, and it's the most important talk of my life, and I put my heart and soul and all I can think of 24/7. I'm just like passionately involved. Like I remember, okay, I'm going to tell you a secret, okay? I don't know if I can share this publicly. Okay, I'm not going to share 100%. I had to give a very important speech, and I decided to do it on a very personal and important subject, and a difficult subject to talk about. But I decided this had to be told. I tell you, I just practiced this speech. You know how Steve Jobs said he would do a speech like 50 times before I did it maybe 150 times. I refined it, I did it, I obsessed over every word. I wanted it to be just right. It was like a message I felt in my heart. The world must know this message. The world must know this. It must be said. I'm going to cry again. And was I happy creating that speech? No. If happiness is walking around skipping and jumping and la la la, no, it was agony, because the creative process is agonizing, because it's like something at the tip of your tongue. You can taste it, you can feel it, you can sense it's already created somewhere. Like, you know, this creative thing, this speech or whatever, it exists somewhere in your mind, but it's almost like, you know, sculptors say that when they look at a piece of clay, that piece of work is in there. They have to chip away at the clay to find it. So it's that feeling. That speech is there. I can taste it, but I can't get to it yet. And it's frustrating. It's agonizing. It's painful. It's torturous. I find the creative process is torturous. But then these moments come where it flows and it comes out, and you see glimpses of this beauty and this perfection, and you feel elated, and I mean, it's all worthwhile. It's kind of like giving birth, for all the women who know the beauty and the joy and the pain of giving birth, it's like that over and over and over again. Imagine like 3 months of giving birth to like an array of 57 different children, one after the other. It's like that. It's pain and elation. So, do I think creative people are happier? No, I don't. I think creative people suffer tremendously. They experience ecstasy tremendously. It's a wild ride, and not everybody wants that. Not everybody's cut out for that. And I myself, and I know I'm not the first. I know a lot of artists that have said that. They feel, okay, enough. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want a normal life. I want a job. I want it to be simple. I want things to be easy. I want someone else to take the risk. Just tell me what to do. I'll teach. I want to go back to teaching. I'll go into the class. I'll teach. I love teaching. I was good at it. Teaching is a noble profession. I don't want this agony anymore. And this elation, even the elation is like, it's exhausting. And then, you know what happens? You just get up and you keep doing it because it's in your blood, it's in your DNA. It's like, it is who you are. That's what it is. I pick myself up and get back in the race.
I think you've kind of given me a very philosophical end to this, where I kind of always feel you go through this process, and you kind of told, it's like the curve. One end, like most philosophies, and this thing teaches you to be content, and probably content gives you happiness. It's about being content, whereas the creative process, the problem is, or I would say the challenge is, or that's what we live for. It's like, as a true artist, you're never happy with the final outcome of what you create. So you want to constantly improve. You want to improve that. Oh, you know what? I could have done this better. You know what? The lighting could have been better. The sound could have been better. And you're constantly looking for that, like, how can I make this look better? And sometimes in that elation, or in that strive for perfection, we kind of sense of lose this whole journey. And like they say, the whole, like, even if you're a traveler or you're a creative person, what you need to start relishing is the journey, and probably not the destination, because we so fall in love with the destination or the end product that, what, my final product has to look like this. And when it's done, you're like, that's it. I've kind of done. And then you start feeling miserable because you've kind of done that. And then you're kind of looking for, like, no, I need something more to keep me alive and up. And we kind of tend to lose that journey from point A, where I was, to point B, to strive for perfection. And I stop enjoying that journey process from A to B. And that kind of gives you a real dip, and then you go for that little high at that moment. But then the whole high is how you live through that entire journey, no matter how it is. If you're conscious of that journey, you're going to love and enjoy the whole process. And I somehow agree with your point. Quite often as creative people, we kind of get so obsessed with that final product, or the final piece of artwork, or be it an artist, or a actor, or a singer, or anybody. See, because the whole world reacts to your final product. And sometimes you feel extremely miserable because what does an artist live for? He's looking for, like, how's the world going to see that? I'm looking for that reaction. You're all trying to I put a best piece out. How's the world going to react? And you get all types of reactions. Sometimes they take you on cloud 9, and another fine morning they just put it and term it as a piece of trash, and you just keep wondering what happened. It's just their context changed, but then if you enjoyed that whole journey, because I always tell people, like, being creative, being happy is striving to do something, constantly striving to do and keep improving and doing that. And we need to enjoy that striving process.
I would like to ask you, in your experience as a creative person, do you also find, like me, the creative process is quite agonizing because it's just so out of your reach? Like, you're constantly, what do you say about that?
I completely agree with what you said. I've gone through the same phase of feeling extreme agony with the whole striving, trying to get there, achieving, pitching your ideas, and sometimes you feel like sometimes some of those ideas are shot down for like insane reasons. I'm like, you put that down for that reason. And then at some point of time, in earlier days, I used to really fight it out, really go head on. And then after a point, I realized, you know what, there are sets of work you need to distinguish. There is a kind of creative work, but then I'm doing it for a client or a person or somebody else, then I call that as a service. And when I'm doing that end person's, it's that end person's vision or dream or what that is. Though you are crafting it and creating, I would say, okay, I've made a happy sense of kind of segregating this by saying, okay, this is for an end person. So it's like an objective, it's a goal, an objective, it needs to be met. And in that process, if I'm having some fun and enjoyment, great. But then to my true self, which I am not going to compromise or not going to be bothered about how the world looks at it or how they're going to treat it. If they like it, like it. If they don't like it, cool with it. I've felt my art process that way is extremely satisfying, extremely rejuvenating, and it puts me in a piece of trance. Because when I'm doing that, when I'm doing my canvases, I'm saying, hey, you know what, I've got this thought or this imagery in my mind, and I'm going to give it shape. And while I'm giving it, a lot more things happen and it changes, and from where I started to where it ends up being. And I said, okay, at this stage, I'm going to put a stop to it. And that, in terms of that abstract form, has made me realize, if I have to do something very true, I need to be doing that without an expectation of the outcome. Define that outcome, then I'm in for misery. And this is a little philosophical, because they say if you expect an outcome, it could be an audience clap, or it could be 10 people coming and say, hey, you did a great product. Or if there is an expectation attached to it, you are bound to feel miserable. But the moment you take that expectation out of the window, and I'm saying, hey, you know what, I put my time, my resources, my energy. There's nobody in the world to question why I'm doing it, and I'm doing it for my heart's pleasure. And this I learned from a whole lot of artists that I've interviewed over the years. And I've said, man, this is the magic crux. Some of these guys are living amazingly. They are happy with what they are doing, even with the least of the resources and means with them, is because they've not put an attachment to it. And moment they are, and you can feel the difference between that artist and the other end of the artist who's trying to sell his artwork or his piece of work, and then you're kind of let down by how the world thinks constantly. I think having zero expectation is probably the magical element for all of this.
Well, that's very interesting, Harish. And I'm going to say that this call actually gives me a great takeaway, because it reminds me of exactly that this life choice of, sort of, to summarize and wrap it up and come back to the original topic of leading a life outside of the box. The intention behind that has always been the process, not the finished product, but the process. I think maybe my attitude today is flavored by the fact that these last 2 days I've been at that part of the creative process where I've been trying to make something happen. I won't get into what, but I've been met with rejection these few days. Not rejection, just not closed doors. I haven't been able to find an open door. And so I'm at that part of the process today. Maybe tomorrow I'll be there, but this call has reminded me, get over it, Mariana, because don't get attached, just like don't get attached to the end result. Also, don't get too attached to the obstacles when the door closes and you get rejected or you can't make it happen. Don't get attached to that either. Neither of those reflects the value of the person and the quality of the life. Just carry on with the process. So I'm going to say thank you for the takeaway today.
So that brings me to one final thing. Are creative people happy people, or happy people creative people?
You ask really tough questions, and I'm going to say no. and no. And this is probably something we could have a long chat about, Harish, because I think you may not agree, but to me, happy people are happy for many reasons. There are many values that bring happiness, not all of them creativity. I know many happy people that don't have a creative bone in their body. They're happy for other reasons because their other values are being met: security, connection, adding value to the world, contributing, even a job they like, or family. So I don't think happiness breeds creativity, and creativity, I don't think it breeds happiness. I think it breeds passion and excitement and elation and torture and agony and all the rest. But to me, happiness is a feeling of calm, steady joy. I mean, I guess it depends how we define happiness, but if I'm defining it as a calm, steady contentment, no, I would say no. And the look at the craziness of a lot of famous people that we see in the world, famous writers and actors and producers and singers. Are they happier than everybody else? I would definitely say no. In other words, you can be in the box and lead a safe life and aim for comfort and not want to take risk and be very happy. I do not see the correlation. But I think that creative people must create. I think. Creative people just must create. And what drives them? Happiness. It's not happiness. They're not driven by happiness. They're driven by purpose, by mission, by vision, by something. Ayn Rand, well, that's a whole different topic, but Ayn Rand was a genius. I don't know if you know her, a Russian genius writer. She wrote Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, and she was a genius, and she was a huge influencer in philosophical and political and economic thinking in the United States in the 60s, I think, the 60s or 70s. But she always said, happiness is overrated. And I didn't understand it, but as I'm saying this, I'm saying it too. What is happiness? What is happiness? I mean, was Mother Teresa happy? Was Gandhi happy? He was driven. Was he happier than everybody else? You tell me, was he happier?
I think I would agree to that point that they were extremely driven individuals, and probably their sense of happiness was maybe a little different from how others were happy. For somebody, happiness meant going out, being with the family, enjoying, sharing a few smiles. Maybe for them, the happiness meant, going out, standing up, getting in the morning, seeing 100 people, talking to them and motivating them and driving them to do something. And maybe that was their sense of being gratified. And so the definition of happiness, I think, varies from individual to individual. And if that's driving them to do something, I'm sure they are deriving some kind of happiness. I think if we define the happiness in a different context, I think that would make more sense.
We just have to be true to ourself, whatever that is. There's no better way or worse way to live. There's no more honorable way or less honorable way. It's whatever meets your needs.
Very true. And on that note, I would like to thank you, Mariana, for having really been there, patiently throwing up and handling all the sorts of questions and sharing a true part of you and bringing it out to the world. And to me, it's been simply out the box in terms of how it's kind of come out. Though the definition of box, we might differ on what the box is supposed to be. But it's been a complete pleasure having you today here on the show. And I'm sure this is going to end up inspiring a whole lot of people who are going to be listening to this.
And thank you for having me. You're always one of my favorite people and one of the people that I admire most. So thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Mariana.